Hello, everyone. I'm Simon Ford of Ford's Gin. Martinis, gin and tonics, Negronis, great classic cocktails is what I'm about, which is why we've partnered with Beyond the Drink for this season. Cheers.
Well, you just heard from the man himself, Simon Ford, and we are glad this season of Beyond the Drink is once again brought to you by our friends at Ford's Gin. I'm Cappy, and in this series, we're going behind the bar. It's time to explore the journeys of the world's best bartenders, uncovering their passion, the latest gin trends, and of course, the social impact they make in their community. Beyond the Drink airs every other week right here on Beyond the Plate. If you're new to the pod, welcome. If you've listened before, we're glad you're back. Let's go Beyond the Drink. Salud. Joining us today is the owner of two of Miami's hottest cocktail bars and another soon to open this fall. You can find more on him in the episode notes and follow him on Instagram at East Coast Will. Please enjoy this episode as we go beyond the drink with Miami's own Will Thompson. All right, Will, we start off every episode with an audio test, and this season is no different. Name 3 ingredients you love to use with gin.
Sherry, like super dry sherry, like a Manzanilla or Fino sherry. Ice, lemon peels. Those are good ones.
Ice. We haven't gotten that, and that's so great. I love it.
Lord. I mean, I'll drink warm gin, but it's not my first choice.
All right, you sound good. Let's do it. All right, Will, let's get into it. I'm going to start basic here. Tell everyone what you do.
I used to bartend in and now look after a couple of cocktail bars downtown. And I'm in the process of building a very large restaurant up in Little River based on a pop-up we did during the pandemic.
Love it. Are you behind the bar a lot?
I'm behind the bar getting in their way, but I've had less and less time to actually work shifts. When we started downtown about 6 years ago, we didn't have any team at all. I was the bartender, chef was the chef. We had a line cook and we had a part-time dishwasher. It was not great. I think between the two spots, there's about 50 of us now downtown, which is incredible. So less time for me to be on a well, more time to make sure that everything is doing all the stuff that it needs to ensure that our guests are having a good time when they come in.
Do you like that side?
I think as soon as you get good at something, they don't let you do it no more. And that's a little bit how I feel about bartending. It's like, man, I was really starting to get this figured out. But I think, and maybe this will come back later, at some point you go from building what's in the glass or building an experience to building the room, right? And for me right now, that's kind of feels like what I need to be doing. And it's exciting and it's a very new problem set. You know, it's not just like, hey, did this one individual have a pretty good time? And did we make sure that bar back learned something? And now it's, hey, this building is adaptive reuse in a neighborhood with no utilities. So we're going to go into the street 6 times. And they do not prepare you for that at bartender school.
Do you enjoy it? I feel like there's chefs who love the process of opening a restaurant, and then it's some that stress them the hell out and they just want to like have it open.
Those are sickos. No, it's unbelievably exciting, right? I think we were able to, with our downtown spot, to grow a team to the point where they no longer really had space for me, you know, and that to me is a great sign. Cool. Everything in this room is going more or less how it is supposed to. The lights are right. The music's right. Guests are having a good time. Support staff is learning and growing. We're executing. And as I get displaced, it kind of pushes me into a like, okay, cool. Well, now it seems like it's time for us to take on like whatever that next chapter is. Part of it is incredible and so exciting and like what a new set of problems and set of challenges. The other part of it is just absolutely terrible. We're trying to like work through the great city of Miami to go into a neighborhood like this in a first gen space. Like, no, I cannot imagine a human being genuinely being like, yeah, that's love of the game right there.
Yeah, there's issues that are just shit.
So many of them.
All right, tell everyone, how'd you get to where you are?
Airplane. No, I started off in Boston a long time ago. Started working in cafes when I was really young, like an ice cream shop. Eventually lied my way into a bartending job at a pretty bad Moroccan restaurant, and then ended up quitting that bartending job after I applied about 3 times to work at what was at the time a very, very, very good cocktail bar in Boston. I worked there for about 4 years and then got into traveling, consulting, opening bars for kind of other folks. Did a little bit of work around the country, got to go on some fun trips, moved to New York a couple of times, did a year as a brand ambassador that gave me an opportunity to just travel and kind of see what was going on everywhere. And then ultimately made the move down to Miami with the express intent of opening our bar there. So that was 15 years summed up about as quick as I could do it.
I love it. All right. So, as you said, you make your way to Miami, where you are now. You've earned recognition nationally and globally, including Michelin Guide Florida's Exceptional Cocktails Award, Ambib Gourmand Spirited Awards nod for Best U.S. Restaurant Bar, Best U.S. Bar Team, Best New American Cocktail Bar, among others, I'm sure. You were named a Rising Star Bartender. Accolades aside, what makes you happy about being behind the bar?
I mean, it's joyful, right? Like, that's a nice thing. You get to host the party. You get to help people have fun. They come to you with their money and they say, I'm here to have fun. And you go, great. That's me too. Like, bartending is, I think it's when you string many, many, many days in a row and you look at, okay, what's my long-term prospect? That's kind of when it starts to get difficult. But the act of getting to take care of guests and to host that party and to make some connections and help people loosen up a little bit, that's a delight. We get to be the intersection of front and back of house. And if you're doing it really well, you kind of get the best out of both. So I think that I said earlier, as soon as you get good at something, they don't let you do it anymore. But yeah, every chance I get to still be behind that bar and connect with folks, that's great. There's all this immediacy. Chefs don't get to see it most of the time unless you build a really expensive restaurant and you make sure that they're a part of it. Like, those guys are generally tucked away somewhere and they have their own, I think, value set. And there's different ways in which they can feel some of the like pride and joy of what's going into putting out great product for people. But we get it like right that second. You watch somebody's eyes light up when you put something stupid down in front of them. And it's like, yeah, who doesn't want that? That's fun.
What are the top 3 cocktails you're making these days? Or are there a few you've just made or coming up that you're excited about?
I've got one coming up that I'm excited about. I haven't been able to travel nearly as much as I want to, but I used to shoot down to Mexico kind of as frequently as I could get. And so this new spot we're doing is massive. It's 13,000 feet. It's indoor, it's outdoor. And I was trying to figure out like, what's going to be our next thing, right? Like, when we opened the first bar, there's, I think, 5 or 6 drinks on that menu that have really not gone anywhere because they're like, cool, this works from a costing perspective. It very much works from a guest facing perspective. It works from a prep and a pickup perspective, right? And those, especially because I haven't had as much time behind the bar, those aren't always easy things to come up with, like the next one, right? Once you sort of level out of day-to-day bartending, it's like, oh wait, shoot, I haven't really had any time to mess around with any of this stuff in a while. But in Mexico, particularly in Mexico City, you find mangonadas, which is like alternating layers of, I think generally like a mango sorbet of some sort, or like pulp, whatever, and then chamoy. And I am going to roll that out as a frozen. And I'm pretty excited because it's this like fluorescent orange and then it's like really bright red and spicy, and mango is so good. And mango is such a part of Miami. And I think the visual is going to be there. And I think that's going to be pretty exciting. Generally speaking, though, I think whatever is connecting guests with our space and the party that we're trying to host is like what I'm excited about. Right. And so I tend to go much more simple. A lot of the folks on our team come down from New York and they want to make these kind of like modern classics. And that's cool. But it's like, guys, if we're doing this really well, you could be hitting 3 ingredient cocktails like every single time. We build a menu, and the thought behind the menu is that anybody who walks in is going to be able to find 1 or 2 things that really pop off the page at them that are like exciting and kind of get them in the door. And there's some novelty there. But then hopefully by drink number 3, we've got you onto something, just whatever your favorite cocktail is, and we're doing it better than you're used to having it. So I'm not particularly driven by like my thoughts about my creativity or our team's creativity. It's much more like, how do we solve for this problem? How do we make sure that guests want to keep coming back over and over and over again? Because I mean, you know, the city, it's not huge, right? 6 months out of the year, you could behave like New York and never see the same guest twice, but that still leaves 6 months out of the year. And if you're not speaking pretty loudly to the people here and connecting them with things that they want, you're going to be pretty lonely. So I think Miami's taught me a lot about kind of what real business is, because we don't have 10 million 28-year-olds running around with disposable income who are going to drink like whatever's trendy in that moment.
Got it. That's cool. You know, I was looking through some of your menus and that exactly how you're explaining it. I was like,
cool.
These are cool.
That's
There's
lucky.
only like a few flavor profiles or ingredients. And it's not like mentioning some spirit that they only make 3 bottles of from some country.
Oh, no, that's exhausting. Yeah, we do use that. But like, we use a lot of weird stuff. But I think there's a thing in restaurants where everybody's a little bit afraid to feel like a dickhead, you know, and this is like most pronounced in wine, right? Like, how daunting is every wine menu you've ever seen? And the restaurant's plan is like, well, the som is going to come over and connect you. And it's like, no, they aren't. No, they aren't. No one here has the vocabulary to communicate with anybody else, right? Like, we are setting ourselves up for failure over and over again. So we try and use language and colors and little like icons of the drink and all this stuff to communicate really, really loudly in a very
Those are awesome. those icons.
Oh, cool.
Is that someone's responsibility?
I've kind of sort of learned how to use InDesign, but like I can't ever show it to a real designer because I think they would kill me.
They're pretty cool.
You know, it's like watching a dog ride a bicycle and me try and figure this stuff out. Like, it's not good.
Is the wine program similar?
It started off as just me, and then I think we're currently really lucky to have somebody on our team who hadn't even really worked in restaurants prior to joining us, and she's shown a real interest in wine. So she's been taking over our wine list and not doing so like blind, but also not doing so in a way where I feel like she's at all micromanaged, and she's pretty free to inside of what's important to us at JAG, which is to offer things that are what they purport to be. So like fastballs down the middle, right? Hey, this California Chardonnay tastes like California Chardonnay. It does not taste like Burgundy, because Burgundy is supposed to taste like Burgundy and California Chardonnay wants to taste like California Chardonnay, right? It's the same idea of like, how do we communicate effectively? And then how do we make sure people feel like they're getting value, right? So I've seen in other restaurants down here, markups crawling up to like 7x, which is like pretty joyless to me. Information's never been more readily accessible. So people are going to figure this out. And then they're immediately, to me, going to feel like, hey, this is the most cynical thing that could ever happen. Like, I'm not paying you $90 for a $15 bottle of wine. That sucks. So I think inside of like, hey, is there value here? Is there clarity here? Are we giving people what we tell them that we're giving them? Then cool. I'm so excited that this woman's been able to come in and take over this program and sort of flex some new muscles as she grows her understanding of how to build like a comprehensive list.
I love that. There's a cool restaurant, a great restaurant here in Chicago called Galit. Andres and Zach Engel is the chef, and Andres is his business partner, and their wine list I just love because it kind of reads how they would explain the wine.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. It's like, why is that novel? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It doesn't need to be 3 paragraphs of prose. I worked at a restaurant like that. One of the first times somebody gave me keys and was like, hey, my bar is screwed up. Can you give me a hand? It was in this wonderful Spanish restaurant in Brookline, which is just outside of Boston. And this woman is passionate about Spain. And she must have had 400 wines. And each one had like 2 paragraphs of borderline poetry underneath it. If you ask for the wine list, you get a binder like, yay. It's cool. I'm with you part of the way, but like maybe tighten it up a tiny little bit.
Throw that list into ChatGPT and say, shrink these paragraphs down to 1 sentence. That's cool. I love it. Do you remember your first cocktail?
The first cocktail I ever invented, I was either 16 or 17 years old. It was right when Sparks came out. Do you remember that product?
I don't.
Sparks was like the predecessor of like a Four Loko. It was an energy drink with booze, and it looked like a battery, and nobody had done this yet. So you could walk around and drink energy drink that looks as though it, So I was constantly in Harvard Square, and it was like, oh, this is fun. Like, So the first drink I ever invented is you drink the first 1.5 ounces, you take a big sip out of it, and then you take a nip of orange vodka and you pour it into this orange flavored, already just like can of poison. And it's called an orange crime wave, and it will just do terrible, terrible things to your body. But also I feel like I peaked there. That might have been the best thing I ever did. And it's just been like been rolling downhill since. Yeah, that's number 1 for sure.
Do you have a go-to cocktail these days?
Yeah, I think like a lot of us, I don't necessarily drink a huge number of cocktails when I go out, which probably speaks loudly to what's going on in my industry. But yeah, a martini with a little dash of something in it, like a little dash of absinthe in there, and it's an obituary, and a little dash of yellow chartreuse in there, and it's a Puritan. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of clean up a martini and keep it nice and dry and keep it drinking the way that it does while still getting a little bit of variety. So that's probably what I drink the most of for myself. And then if I'm making or recommending, I don't know. People are drinking a lot of agave these days, just any of 10,000 different margarita variations.
I meant to ask, when you were talking about Mexico, you said you were going there a bunch, but not as much these days because you're in Miami, or because the next place has a focus there, or you find inspiration
there? No, it's
there?
just great to go there. Mexico's just the best. Yeah. I would like to pretend that's R&D, but no, it's just like, is there a beer and a taco nearby, and are they both incredible? Like, great, I'm super happy.
How about what's exciting to you these days? Like in the world of gin, I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think the martini really had a moment during COVID, right? Like when people were just getting after it, right? We were running this big outdoor pop-up, and it was just martinis as far as the eye could see, which is great because I've been trying to sell people martinis since I started bartending. This just seems to me like what people are supposed to drink. There's no sugar, hits you right away. It's very, very naked, so you can do it at a very high level, and that kind of shows through. But even when it's only okay, it's still pretty good. You got that kind of like pizza quality to it, right? Where it's like, even when it's bad, it's still like, it's all right. And I think What I see coming down the pipeline, what we're pushing towards is sort of a return to normalcy and a pullback from this like sort of ostentatious novelty that's taken over. Everything's clarified. Everything has a stupid snack that comes on the side. Everything has to be this like very cocktail contest driven, like, you know, we're it feels like we're hitting where molecular gastronomy was like 10 or 15 years ago when people were already super over it.
Foams on foams on foams. Yeah.
Yeah. Foams are huge right now. That sucks. Have you ever had a cocktail with a foam on it? It's terrible. I really don't like any of that. Like, I like things that people want to have more than one of. And I like things that work for our business because those things go hand in hand. People really like lime juice. And they like when it's fresh. And that to me right now feels like kind of a pushback against a lot of the trends that we're seeing. Like citric acid sucks. Malic acid sucks. Thinking that that's a smart thing that you need to be doing sucks. There are, in my mind, far too many bartenders who feel like their job is to like be clever in a room, you know, and like come up with these ideas. And it's like, no, take care of guests. What are they responding to? What makes them really happy? What makes them want to come back? And those things tend to be quite normal. What's exciting to me right now is very boring, right? It's like gin martinis that are really good, that like you serve in a space that people are excited to be in, and you serve them in a way that they feel like, wow, I was well taken care of when I went into that space. And that made me feel good. And that makes me want to go back.
Why do you say it's boring?
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, like, when we converse about this stuff, it's oftentimes beverage media is looking for new trends. They're looking for novelty. And I just like old man. I am an old man telling the rest of the world to get off the yard. Just normal, good stuff served in a...
Yeah, but then when you grow up, you realize like you got to get off of the yard.
You got it. I just mowed the yard. What are you doing on it? You know?
You're like, I know what that man meant now.
Yeah. No,
You know?
I remember being 22 and reading all these cocktail books from like the 19th century or whatever. And there's this like super common theme of like a stiff drink for a fair price, right? And it's like, we could not have deviated further from the most basic part of like what makes bars go. And so, yeah, I mean, the stuff I like is boring. It's like a normal drink.
It's funny you say that it's boring because I saw something where you have something coming up that caught my eye, and I need you to tell me more about this Pick Your Path martini program.
Yeah, sure. So the front page of the new drink menu, we're trying to solve for service failures, right? To me, that's what that's its job, is to help connect guests with the things that they want to have very quickly, right? So martini means about 40,000 things to 40,000 different people, right? And they all have pretty strong opinions, and however they like theirs is the only way that anybody is supposed to ever make a martini. And how could you possibly not know that, like, you know, you rinse the vermouth in the thing and you throw it's shut up.
Yeah.
But it's what you like. It's so great. That's perfect. That's the right thing. So the idea is that we're going to build about a third of this page of cocktails that'll be a sort of a part of a 3-pager that guests get, that is going to really help them navigate that process and sort of force them to answer the questions about their preferences in a way that should feel pretty natural and not like, I'm not going to give you like a checklist. You know, it's not a sushi menu, right? Where you like scratch off all the boxes you want. Like, we're trying to make this easier and not harder. It's not necessarily meant to be a way to be like, oh, cool, you thought you wanted a dirty vodka martini, but I'm going to make you drink a journalist. Like, it's very much not that. It's a like, hey, let's get you, guest who does not have the vocabulary, to be able to tell us the things that will allow us to make you the right drink for you. So it might be less fun than you were hoping for, but I think when we're looking at a restaurant that's 200 plus seats, the idea of being able to nail this for every guest every time is a pretty serious, like, complicated problem. And this is an attempt to take a couple of steps towards what happens when you have a new server, right? Like, new ones, they don't know anything. So if we can help equip them with the tools to do the right thing by our guests, we will fail less frequently.
I love that. By the way, that sounds exciting to me.
I mean, it could be exciting to the two of us and literally no one else. But yeah,
really?
Sure. I care about this stuff. I just don't think anybody else does. You know?
In my mind, it's like choose your own adventure. It's like guide me to what I feel. Guide me to what strikes my mood at the moment. You know what I mean? Totally. Like, they're coming into your place.
New ideas for sure.
Yeah, they're seeing a martini. Like, they may be freaking celebrating because they just sold their house. They may be just broken up with someone. You know, like, I feel like that Pick Your Path is gonna, like, it's a mood thing in a way too. No.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason it needs to be the same thing every time, right? Like, most people I know, people who are very, very talented at this, sometimes want a filthy vodka martini, and they sometimes want a gin martini with a dash of absinthe in it, right? And like, the idea that we're in a world where we as people trying to sell guests items are going to be like, well, this is the right one. This is the best. Like, that sucks so much. hopefully, if you already have a strong idea of what you're looking for, this helps give you the language to connect with that. And then if you're a little bit more open-minded, yeah, we might bury some like more esoteric kind of, to me, pretty interesting or compelling variations on a martini, but we need to make sure that we're not being loud with that. It's there if you want it and easy to ignore if you don't.
I love it. So will our Beyond the Plate listeners know that the podcast celebrates social impact with every guest? And it's, as before we recorded, I was saying it's really no different with bartenders we talk to, because learning how you all do it is what keeps me or the team and listeners, quite frankly, inspired. And chefs, bartenders all have their own way. So we want to give you a moment to shed some light on a cause or charitable organization that you may want to raise awareness for. I would love for you to share how you give back or a story of how you've seen social impact during your career.
I mean, the bars and restaurants are meant to be necessarily almost a part of the communities they exist inside of, right? We are that, whatever it is, third or fourth space, right? Where everybody shared living room. And I think that's felt even more strongly in really small towns. But Miami, I think, has a lot of like small town quality to it as well, right? Like it's big and small at the same time. I think finding a way to connect with your community is pretty important if you're purporting to be at all local, right? McDonald's doesn't have to, but indie restaurants, I think, probably makes sense. If only to reinforce to your team that like you are a human being and you care and like we're a part of this. And some days it doesn't feel like it matters, but really it does. So we do some direct work with charities. Most recently, we were working with the Sebastian Strong Foundation, which is local. It's a husband and wife that are raising a ton of money to fight children's cancer, which is like a criminally underfunded, I guess, branch of like medical research for all the most depressing reasons in the entire world. These guys are incredible. They lost their son, Sebastian, and are now kind of spending their lives trying to help other people not have to go through what they went through. We were connected with that charity by another local Miami restaurateur. And it's like, it's heartbreaking. And it's also like, what, you just want me to give like a couple of bucks for every cocktail? Like, yeah, man. Yeah, of course. There's some direct stuff where if we have, folks from our team who are working with a cause, giving out gift cards for raffles, like it's little stuff, right? But it's just part of, I think, existing, at least in an at all meaningful way. If you want your team to know that you care about them, and we care about our team a great deal. I do think a lot of what we do here is the most direct, the most genuinely impactful stuff that we're doing, though, is the way in which we need to take care of our team, particularly in a city like Miami, where there's just no safety net. Right. And everybody's getting boiled alive by cost of living. So during COVID, it meant finding ways to stay open safely. We certainly did not make a dollar for those 2 years, but we kept our team employed. We kept everybody in their apartments or their houses. Right. That was unbelievably difficult. We're doing an outdoor restaurant. It's Miami. Rains like so much. But it felt like if we stopped, all of a sudden we were going to have these 30, 35 people that really didn't have any recourse, right? Like restaurant workers are not famous for being super financially astute. I don't know that many of us walk around with like those sensible safety nets that we were told we needed. We have at different points like housed people on our team where they were in danger of being displaced. And it's like, cool, we'd love for you to be able to stay here. You end up putting people up for a while. We're currently working through a visa process for somebody on our team, which is very expensive. That was news to me. Unfortunately, that's kind of a lot of it. And I don't mean for it to sound selfish or like we don't want to be giving back even more than we do, but it's being able to take care of the individuals that come work with us in a very, very direct, often very expensive way is quite important. And then we pepper in all this other stuff, whether it was meals for first responders or working with, there's a woman who runs a church who was actually living in the building that our bar's in and finding ways to support them while they're doing like holiday meals. Stuff like that is all good. And it feels great to be able to participate, but being totally candid, it's the extent to which we've been able to take care of folks on our team when they've been in really serious situations. It's probably felt like the most important to me.
I love that. I love it. That's huge. Thank you for sharing all of that. All righty, let's close it out here. I'm curious when it comes to etiquette, bar etiquette, if you will.
Don't have any.
Tell us one thing we should never do in a bar and one thing we should always do in a bar.
Don't make other guests of the team uncomfortable. That's pretty easy, right? The things you should do, I don't know, have a good time.
I like that. I can go for that.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Sorry, I gave you 4,000 words on the last one. I've got like 6 on this, but no, I think we're past the here's the list of the 10 rules that you must follow to be in this cocktail establishment. I don't know, try not to be a nightmare. Feels fair.
Yeah, love it. Thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time. I love talking to you all. I'm very grateful for the whole incredible bartending industry and community. So thank you again for what you do. And I probably won't be down in Miami until February for the next festival.
Yeah, that's a good time to come. Yeah.
hopefully before that, but we'll see. But appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. No, thank you so much. I did not realize anybody else was interested in this stuff. So, a delight to be able to talk about it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Have a good week. Yeah, good luck on the next opening.
Thank you so much. I will need it.
This episode was produced by myself, along with Ian Cohen, Joel Yetton, and Sean Petrosian. Our digital media producer is Sarah McClellan-Mee. Our music has been composed by Goldford. Find him at iGoldford. As always, special shout out to my wife, Katie. If you have not started following me yet, you should. Find me across all social media at On Cappy's Plate, or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com and keep up to date with Beyond the Plate. Beyond the Plate is also on social at BT Plate Podcast. If you have a moment, we'd be grateful of your support by rating, reviewing, and even hitting that subscribe button to the podcast. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Drink, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.